My name is Marcus Reed. I'm 41 years old, and I teach literature at the University of Oregon in Portland. For 9 years, I thought I understood the woman I married. Her name was Vanessa Liu. We met at a graduate symposium in Denver back in 2014, married in 2016, and I genuinely believed we were building something that would last. I poured everything I had into our life together. Every paycheck, every decision, every plan revolved around us. In 2018, I used money from my grandmother's estate to help buy our townhouse in the Pearl District. It was a 3-bedroom unit in a converted warehouse from the 1980s. Nothing extravagant, but it was ours. The purchase price was $520,000, which was fair for that part of the city. I've always been the quiet type. Observant, thoughtful. I don't yell. I don't pick fights, and I solve problems the way I teach, with patience and careful analysis. My students respect that about me. I thought my wife did too. But looking back now, I realize what I saw as composure, she must have seen as passivity. That was my first mistake. Our marriage wasn't dramatic, but I thought it was solid. We had routines. I'd prepare lectures in the evenings while she worked on her laptop, running a small consulting business for tech startups. We'd cook dinner, watch something on streaming, talk about our days. Standard married life. At least, that's what I believed was happening. The first signs appeared in late 2023. Vanessa started taking trips. Wellness retreats, she called them. Long weekends in Napa, Santa Fe, Sedona. She'd come back with expensive jewelry, new designer clothes, high-end handbags that seemed far beyond what her consulting income could justify. When I asked about it, she'd smile and say she'd landed bigger clients, that her business was finally taking off. I believed her. That was my second mistake. Then came the financial irregularities. Small at first. $70 here, $150 there. Cash withdrawals that didn't match our usual patterns. When I mentioned it, Vanessa became defensive. You're suffocating me, Marcus. I need some autonomy with money, too. So I backed off. I always backed off. That was becoming a habit. 3 months ago, in mid-August of 2025, everything shattered. It was a Wednesday evening. The late summer heat was unbearable, and I was reviewing syllabi for the fall semester. Vanessa had been unusually quiet during dinner, barely touching her food, constantly glancing at her phone. I should have recognized the signs, but I was distracted. Thinking about the unit on Southern Gothic literature, I needed to update. Marcus, we need to talk. Her tone was different. Cold. Clinical. She wasn't looking at me, just staring at some fixed point beyond my shoulder. I set down my pen and gave her my full attention. What's going on? She took a deep breath, and what followed sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in front of a mirror dozens of times. I want a divorce. The word struck me like a punch to the chest, but I kept my face neutral. Years of teaching had trained me to control my reactions, especially when dealing with the unexpected. Okay, I said quietly. We can talk about what's wrong, what we can fix. She shook her head. There's nothing to fix. I'm done. I've already consulted an attorney. She'd already consulted an attorney. Of course she had. This wasn't a conversation. It was a pronouncement. I see, I said. What are you proposing? That's when her mask slipped, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Pure, cold calculation. The townhouse will be mine. I contributed to it too, and I need stability during this transition. I want 75% of our savings account, and you'll pay me spousal support for 6 years. My lawyer says it's more than reasonable, considering I gave up career opportunities to support your academic ambitions. That every demand felt like another betrayal. The townhouse my grandmother had helped us buy. The savings account I'd filled with my $7,500. A month professor's salary while she claimed to be growing her business. Spousal support for a woman who had never supported my career in any meaningful way. But it was her final statement that truly revealed who she had become. She looked me straight in the eyes for the first time that evening, and her expression conveyed absolute contempt. "You're just a professor, Marcus. You don't have the resources for a real lawyer. You can't fight me on this." I sat there for a long moment, processing what I'd just heard. Not just the legal demands, but the disdain behind them. The assumption that I was helpless. The belief that 9 years of marriage could be dissolved with such cruelty. "I understand," I finally said. She looked surprised by my calm response. Perhaps she expected anger, tears, desperate pleading. Instead, I simply nodded. "I'll need some time to process this. We can discuss the specifics in a few days." "Sure," she said, but her smile suggested she thought the conversation was already over, that I had accepted defeat before the battle had even begun. That night, as Vanessa slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. She was right about one thing. I didn't have the money for an expensive divorce attorney. My professor's salary was comfortable but not extravagant. Her lawyer would cost more per hour than I made in a day. But she was wrong about something far more important. She assumed I had no options, no resources, and no one to turn to. She had forgotten about my sister, Claire Reed, my older sister by 5 years, and one of the most formidable divorce lawyers in Portland. We hadn't spoken in nearly a decade, not since our mother's funeral in 2015, when we had a brutal argument about family responsibilities and life choices. She thought I was wasting my potential in academia. I thought she was a ruthless corporate operator with no heart. We were probably both right, but Claire was also brilliant, relentless, and expensive. She was the kind of lawyer who charged $1,100 per hour in 2025 and was worth every penny. She specialized in high-stakes divorce cases, representing executives, entrepreneurs, and public figures. Her reputation was built on finding vulnerabilities in opposing cases and exploiting them with surgical precision. The legal community respected her. Her opponents feared her. The morning after Vanessa's ultimatum, I sat in my home office, reviewing everything I knew about our finances. As a literature professor, I'm trained to analyze narrative, to reconstruct stories from fragmentary evidence. I applied those same skills to my marriage, and what I discovered was deeply troubling. Over the past 2 years, there had been consistent cash withdrawals from our joint account, always in amounts just below $1,000, likely to avoid triggering bank alerts. The timing often coincided with her supposed wellness trips. But more interesting were the credit card charges I had never paid attention to before. Expensive restaurants in Seattle, hotel rooms in San Francisco, luxury boutiques in downtown Portland, all on days when she claimed to be attending those retreats. I called my friend Alina Garcia, a CPA who had helped me with tax preparation for years. "Elena, I need a favor. Can you look at some bank statements?" Unofficial consultation. "What's going on, Marcus?" "Vanessa wants a divorce. I need to understand our financial landscape before I respond. She agreed to meet that afternoon. When I showed her the evidence, Elena whistled softly. "Marcus, this looks like systematic diversion of marital assets. These patterns suggest she's been funding something significant. Or someone. How significant are we talking?" She did some quick calculations. Based on these withdrawals and charges, at least $52,000 over 2 years. Maybe more if she has other accounts you don't know about. $52,000. That was nearly half of our total savings. Money I had assumed was going toward household expenses and her business investments. Money that was apparently buying someone else's affection. That same afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I looked up my own sister. Her firm's website was impressive. Reed and Patterson, specializing in complex family law. Client testimonials praised her thoroughness and results. Legal blogs mentioned her recent high-profile case victory. She had built exactly the career she had always wanted. Her success stung a little. While I had been content with my modest professor's life, she had become a legal powerhouse. But pride was a luxury I couldn't afford now. I found her direct office number and stared at my phone for 20 minutes before dialing. It rang 3 times. Claire Reed. Her voice was deeper than I remembered, more authoritative. The voice of someone accustomed to being in control. Claire, it's Marcus. A long pause. Marcus. It's been a while. 10 years. I said. 10 years. She agreed. What's the occasion? I could hear the caution in her tone. We had parted on such bitter terms that reconciliation seemed impossible. I need help. Legal help. Another pause. What kind of legal help? Vanessa wants a divorce. She's making demands that seem aggressive. I believe she's been diverting marital assets to fund an affair. The line went silent for so long. I thought she might have hung up. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted from cautious to cautiously interested. That's a serious accusation, Marcus. Are you sure? I have documentation. Bank records, credit card statements. Elena Garcia reviewed them and believes there's a pattern. Elena's good, Claire said slowly. If she sees something, it's worth investigating. But Marcus, I need to ask you. Why are you calling me? We haven't exactly been close. The question hung between us like a bridge. I wasn't sure I could cross. Because despite everything that happened between us, you're still my sister. And because she looked me in the eye and told me I was powerless. I'd like to prove her wrong. Another long pause. When Claire spoke again, there was something different in her voice. Not warmth exactly, but recognition. All right. I'll take a preliminary look. No promises, but send me what you have. If there's something there, we'll discuss terms. Thank you, I said. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when we win. For the next few weeks, I became a forensic accountant of my own life. Every receipt, every statement, every financial record went into carefully organized files. Claire's initial review was promising enough that she agreed to take the case, though she cautioned me that Vanessa's lawyer might be more formidable than expected. Richard, Chun doesn't take cases he can't win. Claire told me during our first official meeting. If he's confident, it means Vanessa has convinced him she's in the right. That might work to our advantage if we can prove she's been lying to him too. Claire hired an investigator, a former Portland Police Bureau detective named Sarah Ortiz, to track Vanessa's activities. While Sarah worked, Claire prepared our counter-strategy. The relationship between us remained formal, professional, but I could catch glimpses of the sister I remembered in the way she explained legal concepts. Patient but thorough. The key, she said, is not just to prove she took the money. It's to prove she did it deliberately to defraud the marriage while planning to leave. That transforms this from a property dispute to a case of fraud and forgery. 3 weeks after the investigation began, Sarah hit the jackpot. The expensive dinners weren't random. They followed a pattern, always in cities where a man named Kyle Brennan traveled for business. Kyle was a software sales executive based in Seattle, divorced, with a LinkedIn profile that showed him at conferences in the exact same cities where Vanessa claimed to be attending wellness retreats. She's been seeing this guy for over 18 months, Sarah recorded. Hotel records show they've been meeting up regularly. The jewelry purchases coincide with significant dates in their relationship. She's not just having an affair, Marcus. She's been living a double life. Claire leaned back in her leather chair, studying the evidence spread across her desk. This changes the entire dynamic. Chun thinks he's handling a routine dissolution with an advantageous settlement. He has no idea His client has been committing fraud. What do we do with this? We wait. Let them file their petition with all their confident demands. Then we respond with evidence they never saw coming. The shock value alone will be worth the element of surprise. The first hearing was scheduled for a Monday morning in early September at the Multnomah County Circuit Court. Vanessa had been pushing for a quick resolution, likely hoping to catch me off guard before I could mount a proper defense. Her lawyer, Richard Chun, was known for aggressive tactics and intimidating opposing counsel who couldn't afford prolonged litigation. They expected me to show up alone, overwhelmed, and ready to agree to whatever terms they offered. They were about to be in for the surprise of their lives. I arrived at the courthouse at 8 o'clock, 30 minutes before our scheduled hearing. The building was imposing, all glass and steel, designed to remind everyone inside that justice was a serious affair. I wore my best suit, the charcoal gray one I reserved for faculty presentations and important occasions. I felt nervous, but also strangely calm. Everything was out of my hands now. Vanessa was already in the hallway with Chun, reviewing documents. She had dressed for battle. An elegant black dress, hair severely pulled back, the kind of look that said she meant business. When she saw me approaching, her expression was almost compassionate, as if she were about to do something unpleasant, but necessary. "Marcus," she said with false warmth, "I hope you've had time to consider our proposal. We can still settle this amicably." Chun stepped forward. He was exactly as I had expected. Expensive suit, aggressive handshake, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "Mr. Reed, I'm Richard Chun. I represent your wife. I understand you're proceeding without representation." "Actually," I said, checking my watch, "my counsel should be here any minute." Vanessa's eyebrows raised slightly. "Counsel, Marcus? I thought we discussed this. You can't afford ... She stopped mid-sentence. Her face went completely white. Claire had arrived. She walked down the courthouse hallway as if she owned it, which in many ways she did. Impeccable navy suit, Italian leather briefcase, the kind of presence that made other lawyers step aside. At her age, my sister had the bearing of someone who had never lost a case she cared about winning. Her reputation preceded her into every room. "Apologies for the delay," she said, extending her hand toward me. 1 to 405 traffic was impossible. Chun's face had gone through several interesting color changes. "Claire, Reed. You're representing Mr. Reed?" "I am. Marcus Reed is my client." Claire's smile was professional but direct. "And my brother." The silence that followed was deafening. Vanessa looked like she might faint. Chun was rapidly recalculating every assumption he had made about this case. Other lawyers in the hallway had stopped their conversations to stare. Everyone knew who Claire was. "I was unaware Mr. Reed had retained counsel of your caliber." Chun said carefully. "Well, now you know. Shall we go in?" "I believe Judge Martinez is waiting." The courtroom was smaller than I had expected, but it felt like a coliseum. Judge Rosa. Martinez was known for running an efficient docket and having little patience for theatrics. She had been on the family bench for 12 years and had seen every dirty trick in the book. "Good morning," she said as we took our seats. "I have a petition for divorce filed by Ms. Vanessa Liu against Mr. Marcus Reed. Ms. Liu is represented by Mr. Chun. Mr. Reed is represented by Ms. Claire Reed. This is unusual. Your Honor," Chun began, "we're seeking a straightforward dissolution with terms we believe are reasonable given the circumstances of the marriage." Judge Martinez nodded. "Ms. Reed, I assume you have a response?" Claire rose fluidly to her feet. "Indeed, Your Honor. We're filing a counterclaim that includes several serious allegations. My client has uncovered evidence of systematic diversion of marital assets by Ms. Liu to fund an extramarital relationship. We're requesting a full financial audit, the reimbursement of misappropriated funds, and sanctions against the plaintiff for fraudulent concealment. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Chun was frantically shuffling papers, clearly caught completely by surprise. Vanessa had gone pale again, her hands clutching the edge of the table. "That's a serious accusation, Ms. Red," Judge Martinez said. "Do you have documentation to support these claims?" "Extensive documentation, Your Honor. Bank records, credit card statements, hotel receipts, travel records, and photographic evidence of Ms. Liu's activities over the past 2 years. We also have the testimony of a private investigator regarding Ms. Liu's relationship with a Mr. Kyle Brennan of Seattle, Washington. I watched Vanessa's face crumble. The mention of Kyle's name hit her like a physical blow. Chun leaned in to whisper urgently in her ear, but she barely responded. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Judge Martinez reviewed the initial paperwork. "Ms. Liu, are you prepared to respond to these allegations?" Chun stood up, trembling slightly. "Your Honor, we require time to review these claims. We were not prepared for this level of complexity in what we anticipated to be a routine dissolution. Mr. Chun, your client made very specific financial demands in her initial petition. 75% of marital assets, 6 years of spousal support, and exclusive ownership of the marital home. Those demands suggest she was very much prepared for complexity." Claire stepped forward. "Your Honor, if I may, Ms. Liu's demands become particularly interesting when viewed in light of her spending patterns. She's requesting spousal support while simultaneously having spent approximately $52,000 of marital funds on her relationship with Mr. Brennan. She wants the townhouse while systematically draining the savings that helped purchase it. This isn't a petition for dissolution, Your Honor. It's attempted larceny." The phrase attempted larceny hung in the air like smoke from a gunshot. Even I had to admire Claire's flair for the dramatic. Chun looked like he wanted to object, but he had nothing to object to. The facts were the facts. Judge Martinez set down her papers. "I'm going to order a full financial audit of both parties' assets and expenditures over the past 3 years. I will also appoint a receiver to ensure all marital assets are properly accounted for. Ms. Liu, you are prohibited from disposing of any marital property or assets pending the resolution of this matter. We will reconvene in 10 weeks to review the audit results and proceed with mediation if both parties can reach an agreement." As the hearing concluded, I could see Vanessa's entire strategy collapsing in real time. Her confident demands had been replaced by legal risk. Her quick settlement had turned into a prolonged investigation. Her assumption that I was powerless had been shattered by the presence of a woman in an expensive suit. Outside the courtroom, Chun pulled Vanessa aside for what looked like a very unpleasant conversation. I could see her gesticulating frantically, likely trying to explain why she hadn't mentioned the affair or the expenditures. Chun kept shaking, his head clearly realizing that his client had lied to him about material facts. Claire watched them with clinical interest. "He's about to quit the case," she murmured. "How do you know?" "Body language." He's realizing she's made him look incompetent in front of Judge Martinez. Chun has a reputation to protect. He's not going to let a lying client destroy it. Sure enough, Chun walked away from Vanessa and headed toward the parking garage without looking back. She was left alone on the courthouse steps, looking lost and desperate. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "What happens now?" I asked. Claire packed her briefcase methodically. "Now we wait for the audit results and prepare for the final hearing." She wanted a war, Marcus, but wars have consequences. She's about to learn what it costs to underestimate a Reed. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. It felt good. The 10 weeks between hearings passed with an intensity I had never experienced. The court-ordered financial audit was conducted by a forensic accountant specializing in divorce cases. Every transaction, every withdrawal, every credit card charge was examined in microscopic detail. Meanwhile, Sarah continued to compile evidence on Vanessa's relationship with Kyle Brennan. What we uncovered exceeded even our worst expectations. The audit revealed that Vanessa had diverted almost $78,000 over 2 years, not the $52,000 we had initially calculated. She had opened a secret credit card in her maiden name, taken cash advances against it, and used our joint account to make the payments. She had also forged my signature on a home equity line of credit application, borrowing $35,000 against our townhouse without my knowledge. But the most damaging evidence came from Kyle Brennan himself. Sarah had located him at a software conference in Austin. Confronted with the possibility of being named as a co-defendant in a fraud case, Kyle decided that cooperation was his best option. He provided detailed records of their relationship, including text messages, hotel receipts, and photos Vanessa had sent him. More importantly, he admitted that Vanessa had told him she was already divorced and that I was paying her a substantial settlement. She had been lying to everyone, including her lover. 2 weeks before our return hearing, Chun formally withdrew as Vanessa's counsel, citing irreconcilable differences regarding case strategy. In simple terms, he had discovered she'd lied to him about material facts, making it impossible for him to ethically represent her. She was forced to find new representation on short notice, finally settling for a nervous junior lawyer from a small firm named David Walsh, who specialized in simple divorces, not complex fraud cases. During this period, something unexpected happened between Claire and me. The professional relationship began to thaw into something more personal. We started meeting for coffee to discuss the case, but our conversations would drift to other topics. The argument that had divided us in 2015 seemed smaller now, less important than the fact that we were family. One evening, while reviewing documents in her office, Claire put down her pen and looked directly at me. Marcus, I need to tell you something. When you called me after all those years, you don't know what it meant to me. I thought I'd lost you forever. Her words caught me off guard. My older sister, always so controlled and professional, was showing a vulnerability I had never seen. I owe you an apology too, I said. What I said at Mom's funeral about your career choices, I was wrong. You've built something impressive here. Claire stirred her coffee thoughtfully. And I was wrong about academia being a waste of your talent. You found your purpose. That matters more than making money. It wasn't a complete reconciliation. 10 years of silence don't vanish overnight. But it was a start. And for the first time in almost a decade, I felt like I had my sister back. In early November, we returned to the Multnomah County Circuit Court for the final hearing. The contrast was stark. Where Vanessa had once appeared confident and in control, she now looked haggard and desperate. Her new lawyer, the nervous David Walsh, was clearly out of his depth. His hands shook as he organized his papers, and he kept glancing at Claire like a deer watching a predator. Judge Martinez reviewed the audit results with the thoroughness they deserved. The numbers were damning, but it was the pattern that told the real story. Systematic deceit, continuous fraud, and a complete betrayal of marital trust. Ms. Liu, Judge Martinez said, the evidence suggests you have diverted substantial marital assets for personal use during an extramarital relationship. Do you dispute these findings? Walsh whispered urgently to Vanessa before rising. Your Honor, my client acknowledges certain financial irregularities, but maintains that her request for asset division remains reasonable. Claire immediately stood. Your Honor, Ms. Liu did not commit financial irregularities. She committed the felonies of fraud and forgery. She forged my client's signature on loan documents, opened secret credit accounts, and systematically stole from their joint savings to fund an affair she maintained for over 18 months. This isn't a marital dissolution. It's a matter that could result in criminal liability. The mention of criminal liability hit the courtroom like lightning. Walsh went pale. Vanessa gripped the table so tightly, her knuckles were white, and even I felt the weight of it. Claire wasn't just destroying her civil case. She was threatening her freedom. Judge Martinez's expression was serious. Ms. Red, are you suggesting this court should refer this matter to the district attorney's office? I'm suggesting, Your Honor, that Ms. Lee's actions constitute fraud and forgery under the criminal code. However, my client is primarily interested in recovering his diverted assets and dissolving this marriage without further financial damage, provided a fair settlement is reached through mediation. It was masterful. Claire was offering Vanessa a way out of criminal charges, but only if she abandoned her ridiculous demands and accepted reasonable terms. The threat was implicit but clear. Take the deal or face prosecution. Walsh requested a brief recess to consult with his client. I watched them huddle in the corner, Vanessa gesticulating frantically while Walsh repeatedly shook his head. When they returned, her fight was gone. The confident woman who had delivered her ultimatum 3 months ago had been replaced by someone desperate to avoid jail. Your Honor, Walsh said quietly, my client is prepared to accept a revised settlement through mediation. The final terms bore no resemblance to Vanessa's original demands. She received no spousal support. The townhouse would be sold, with the proceeds divided 50-50 after she reimbursed the diverted funds. She kept her personal possessions, and half of what remained in our legitimate joint savings after reimbursing the fraudulent expenses. She was also required to pay Claire's legal fees, which totaled $38,000. Most importantly, she signed a comprehensive release, acknowledging her financial misconduct and waiving any future claims against me. When Judge Martinez signed the divorce order, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The marriage was over, but so was the uncertainty, the betrayal, and the fear of financial ruin. Outside the courthouse, Vanessa approached me one last time. Kyle Brennan had dumped her when the legal trouble started. Her friends had distanced themselves when the scandal broke, and her reputation was in ruins. She looked broken, much older than her 36 years. Marcus, she said softly, I never wanted it to come this far. I looked at her for a long moment, remembering the woman I had married, trying to reconcile that memory with the person who had tried to destroy me. Yes, you did, Vanessa. You wanted it to come exactly this far. You just didn't expect me to fight back. She had nothing to say to that. A week later, I moved into a small but comfortable condo in the Nob Hill neighborhood, not far from the university. It was mine completely and legally, purchased with my portion of the asset division. The purchase price was $485,000, and the mortgage payments were manageable on my professor's salary. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely content with my living situation. But the most important change in my life wasn't the condo or the financial resolution. It was the relationship I had rebuilt with my sister. Claire and I started meeting for dinner every few weeks, gradually bridging the gap that 10 years of silence had created. We talked about our mother, about the argument that had separated us in 2015, and about the different paths we had chosen. We were different people now, more mature, less concerned with being right than with being family. You know, she said during one of our dinners in a downtown restaurant, I always wondered if you'd made the right choice staying in academia. Now I think maybe you did. You have something I don't have. What's that? Peace, integrity. You became exactly who you wanted to be, not who circumstances forced you to be. It was the first time in our adult lives my older sister had expressed respect for my choices. It meant more than any legal victory. Last week, I received word that Vanessa had moved to Phoenix, starting over with a new identity and whatever was left of her resources. Kyle Brennan had apparently moved on to his next married woman. The townhouse we had shared was sold to a young family with small children, who would fill it with laughter and hope instead of lies and betrayal. I never saw her again, and I never wanted to. The experience taught me something valuable about appearances and assumptions. Vanessa had looked at me and seen weakness where there was actually strength. She had assumed isolation where there was actually family. She had mistaken my quiet nature for powerlessness, not realizing that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are the ones who make no noise. I'm still teaching at the University of Oregon, still preparing lectures and discussing Faulkner and O'Connor with students who think they understand conflict. But I understand it differently now. I know that the most decisive battles aren't always fought with raised voices and dramatic gestures. Sometimes they're won with patient preparation, careful documentation, and knowing when to make the right phone call. And I know that family, even complicated family, is worth more than pride. My name is Marcus Reed. I'm 41 years old, and I am exactly where I need to be. Vanessa tried to take everything from me, but in the end, she gave me something more valuable than anything she could have stolen. She gave me back my sister. The best revenge, I learned, isn't always what you take from your enemies. Sometimes it's what they accidentally give you while trying to destroy you. If you enjoyed this story and want to follow more powerful narratives like this one, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Your voice helps us grow. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support our work and make sure you never miss the next story. Thank you for being here with us.